Welcome to the Tangle with Kyle Ridley, and welcome to another double dose of episodes this week. We are kicking things off with my good friend Sarah Fraser. I've been teasing this episode for a couple weeks, had to delay it a little bit, but it's finally here, and it's a good one. We dig into a lot of stuff. Sarah is a podcast pioneer. She has a daily show. She kicked it off a decade or so ago in the DC area. Now she's in LA taking over La La Land, and she is immersed in a lot of reality TV. She is specifically a big fan of TLC, so she covers a lot of those shows, and she's just big in the celebrity culture world in general. She was just on the Juicy Scoop podcast with Heather McDonald, so she is high in demand. We get into her rise in entertainment, starting in radio and then moving into TV, and there was plenty of drama behind the scenes at radio that you will hear about. She also talks about getting canceled. She is pregnant right now, and she's gone through a lot with trying to have children. She has a beautiful son, but she's dealt with miscarriages and infertility and IVF, and it's a lot. So we dig into everything. And, coming from radio, it's no surprise she is a talker, so there was not much work for me to do for this episode. It was just awesome to catch up with her, and she's immediately captivating, and I know you'll love this episode. As far as what I am tangled in this week, it's a pretty mellow week so far. I am sort of just checking things off my to-do list. I have a car appointment to get something fixed on the transmission. I'm taking 2 of my dogs to the vet. I have dental work that's being done today. I have a lot of bonding that I have just delayed over the years, and finally just getting some of that taken care of. As you get older, you have to take care of these things that we kind of take for granted as we're younger, or simply don't have the funds to spend thousands of dollars on dental work. But it's all leading up to this weekend. I'm going to have a long weekend in Rehoboth Beach with several of my friends. We rented a house, so I am just looking to get away and let loose and end this summer with a bang, and friends and fun and good food and drinks and dancing and all that good stuff. It's already getting cooler here in the DC area. It's in the 70s this week. I'm loving it. Days are getting shorter. It's getting darker. It's getting cooler. It's getting crisper. I'm breaking out my hoodies. Can't wait for fall. All right, guys, this is a juicy conversation. Let's get right to it. Welcome the beautiful, the funny, the talented, the hostess with the mostest, Sarah Fraser. Sarah, it's so great to see you. My gosh, I remember when you were in that little podcast studio in Glover Park many years ago, visiting you for the first time.
My God, can you believe that? I know. I can't even believe how far we've come. It's crazy.
And is this marking 10 years of podcasting?
Oh, it's 9. Isn't that effing wild? I started podcasting, was it 2016? So 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. It's effing insane. It's so crazy. It's so crazy.
Yeah, and you've built this whole empire, and now you're doing it daily.
Can't wait to have you on my show too, which will happen in the fall. I've just been so crazy. And we bought a house, on top of everything else. So we're moving to Sherman Oaks. We bought a house. It's so nuts. So once it settles down, I'll have you on too. Cause I could talk to you for 2 hours. I want to know, are you so happy to be done with Fox?
Yeah, I'm happy to be done with TV. I was good at it, and I kind of went out on a high note. I won an Emmy Award my final year, but the grind of it on your mind, on your body, everyone who works in that industry, waking up at 3 a.m. nowadays, reporting on such depressing news, it's just not fun.
Oh, I bet. I don't think there's anyone really, there's a few people left at that newsroom that I know, but I mean, yeah.
They're dropping. Yeah, they're dropping. It was an experience. I was there for 2 years, and I think I got my fill.
Well, it was a goal of yours. Remember, you wanted to work there. You did. You got it. You got the gig, but then, yeah.
Everything's changing on all ends, all industries.
Local news is so hard. It's just so hard now. So you're in the right industry.
I'm excited to learn all the ins and outs of podcasting and editing, and hopefully be able to utilize these skills in side jobs, or maybe even build my own company like you.
Yeah, you're onto it. No, I'm ready to rock. I've got a good solid hour, so let's do it.
Okay, so raised in Maine, you're always going back and forth. I see your Instagrams. Was it a small town in Maine?
Small town Maine, honey. Tiny, tiny little town. And yeah, I mean, probably just a few thousand people. And typical childhood, I think. It was just very quiet. We rode our bikes, watched TV. That was about it.
Yeah, and your family is still there, so it seems like a nice, quaint, peaceful place to return to, especially with the chaos of DC and LA.
Yeah, and I mean, I I think that's why I wanted to live in a city because I knew what it was like growing up in a small town, which was so fun and you knew everybody. But there was something in me when I was little that always craved bigger. I always wanted to like move to New York City when I was younger. And then I ended up in DC. And then from DC, I ended up in LA. So yeah, I think growing up in a small town, you know what that's like. So you're like, oh, what would it be like to live in a city?
And growing up, you did the morning announcements, you were class president, you were a 90s kid like me. So was it Oprah, Rosie O'Donnell, Howard Stern? Who were your North Stars for entertainment and hosting?
Yes, you nailed it. You nailed it. I mean, even Phil Donahue, Sally Jesse Raphael. Yeah, and I have known what I wanted to do since I was 8 years old. When the moment I tuned in to talk shows, I was like, I want to do that. Just every day the guests were different, they were wild. And back then it was everything, right? Like, Phil Donahue was like, and today we're going to confront Nazis. Like, I mean, it was just like so, you were like, what? I mean, today we're going to talk to a woman who's had 14 kids from 8 baby daddies. Like, it was just so
Those 90s talk shows were the best. Yes.
salacious. Oh, they were so good. And you didn't have the internet. You didn't have people like telling their TikTok story, which is basically very similar. But back then, that was like the outlet to find those odd stories, and they were so good.
And so was it always a dream to do radio and TV? Because you started in radio.
No, you know what? It was my dream to do television. And when I was in college, I actually went to where you and I worked together at Fox 5 DC. I got kind of like a day, I guess like kind of a day internship. I wanted to be in local news. That's what I wanted to do. And I remember, I don't know if you remember an anchor, Michael Gargiulo. Michael, years ago at Fox 5 DC, was like one of their main anchors. And I went up to Michael and I said, hey, can I just take you for coffee and ask you about television? He's like, sure, I'll tell you about TV. So I told him everything I wanted to do. Like, I loved crazy talk shows. And he was like, let me stop you. He's like, you need to go do morning radio. If you take a job at Fox 5 DC, you're going to be out on a murder beat. You're going to be out on a weather beat. You're not going to show your personality. They're going to want you to report the news and facts. You need to go to morning radio. And for whatever reason, Michael's advice completely resonated with me. And that's when I pursued radio because I loved the tabloidness of it, the quirkiness of it. And so I ended up full circle working as a contributor for Fox 5 DC for 13 years. But I then pursued morning radio and I ended up loving it.
The Kane Show was your first big job in radio, right?
That was like the gig that put me on the map. But I moved to DC because my fabulous gunkles, they were the ones that had lived in DC for years and they knew a lot of friends there. And they were, I guess, I don't know, maybe they were Howard Stern listeners, but they were like, Howard Stern started in DC. It's such a great radio market. You need to go there. We'll hook you up with friends you can live with. So the first 2 years, though, I pounded the pavement. I went to every radio station in DC. I knocked on doors. I said, are you hiring? How do I get a job? I started in promotions at Z104. Worked there, went from promotions to assistant producer. We all got fired. I remember my boss at the time, Sammy Simpson, who's still a dear friend of mine, said, look, you're getting fired today, but I'm going to call WTOP traffic. They need an overnight traffic reporter. I did that for probably about a year, got hired with 2 guys, Stevens and Medley, on a classic rock station, 94.7. We worked together for about a year. We all got fired as well. I mean, I didn't know anything about classic rock. Like it was like these 2 guys in their 50s with this like 24-year-old chick, that I think they kind of thought I was hot. So they like put me on and then they had me do like stunt stuff. And I was there for almost 7 years. And that was where people, even to this day, still know me from that show.
I remember, and I have a whole lot to talk about with the Kane Show. We'll get into all of it, but I first want to double back a bit to your childhood because class president, you did the announcements, you were outspoken. It sounds like you were fun and outgoing. You weren't immune to bullying, so you had a hard time. You suffered and struggled with body image, something that I've struggled with as well. So let's go back to that because some of it stems from a big loss in your family.
Yeah. You and I have always bonded over body image and emotional eating. And yeah, I mean, I was always an overweight kid. Always. My brother and I were always chunky children. And this was like back in the late 80s, early 90s, like when a lot of kids were not chunky, and so, yes, I can remember as young as like first grade, being picked on by the other girls of being fat. And that was devastating, just just like crushing. And I went on my first diet when I was 12 years old. I went to my first Weight Watchers meeting, which my mom took me. And now to this day, I joke about her. I'm like, Mom, why would you ever take me to a Weight Watchers meeting? And she was like, well, you hated being picked on. Like, I thought I was doing the right thing. Like, I was trying to help you out. Of course, that started like a whole eating disorder because it's like, it's counting calories and it's getting weight. I think they've changed a lot their practices, but back then you like had a weigh in and they rang the bell if you lost a pound or if you didn't, I mean, so it was from the age of 12 to 28. I gained and lost 150 pounds and I did every diet under the sun. I mean, and diet pills and laxatives, which by the way is not like shitting your brains out is really not a glamorous way to lose weight. You're like exactly.
Well, that 90s culture, it was just all about try this one week, try this another week, and you get that fix of losing weight and none of it really works. And some of it's gotten better, not all. If you take a look at social media, there's definitely some bad diet culture out there, but we didn't know. We didn't know anything about nutrition. I didn't, my parents didn't. I didn't really learn till I was an adult.
Right, and everybody did the fat-free diet then. You mentioned death, like, my dad, when I was 14, passed away from stomach cancer, and that really spiraled my eating disorder, like, even more heavily. That the next 2 years, I went more towards the, like, anorexic side. I passed out at a track meet from only eating, like, a bagel a day, and then that kind of really scared me. So then I yo-yoed the other way and probably gained like 70 or 80 pounds. So by the time I went to college, I was, for me, I'm a small person, like I'm 5'3". I think I'd gotten close to probably 190 pounds, very like for me, a lot of weight. It just, it took me many years. It actually took me moving to DC, getting that job on the Kane show. And as a public figure, people have all kinds of comments about your body. I would meet people in real life and they'd be like, "Oh, I thought you were going to be tall and like skinny and blonde." And I'm like, okay. Like I didn't know. I took all that stuff very personally. People would tweet at me like, "Oh, I saw you at a baseball game, and if you lost 20 pounds, you'd be so much hotter." Like so that really messed with my mind. In probably I'd say 2011. I randomly Googled because I had done every diet. I was like, I can't diet. I am going to quit the entertainment business if I can't handle the feedback because I'm so desperate. Like, I can't go on one more diet and fail. Because, diets don't work notoriously. 95% of people gain all the weight back and more. It has to be a lifestyle change that you can maintain.
Also, the eating, the overeating, the binge eating, restricting, a lot of it just stems from the environment, also. So it's not just the comments you're seeing on social media, but when you're in a stressful or toxic work environment, you're using that to comfort as soon as you get home. And, that's kind of what you need to do to soothe that stress. And in the end, you have to learn other practices to soothe and relax yourself.
Totally. And disrupting your sleep pattern, you and I for years got up at 3 in the morning. I mean, for Kane Show, I was up at 3:30 in the morning at the station at 4:30. We were live at 5. I mean, it was
Live tired. You live tired.
you live, yeah, and your body can't catch up. So, in a moment of desperation, I Googled how to give up dieting Washington, D.C. And this woman, Robin Mize, who was a certified mindful eating therapist, popped up. And I called her and I was like, "Are you taking clients?" And she said, "Yes." And Robin, single-handedly to this day is one of the people in my life that changed my life the most. Like she and Janine Roth, who is an incredible mindful eating, food expert, emotional eating, recovery therapist, unbelievable. And they really taught me, when you eat, binge eat, overeat, undereat, there's something emotionally going on with you. And it's a spectrum, much like an autism spectrum, right? Some people have extreme anorexia, some people have extreme overeating. I was somewhere on that map and slowly, probably in about a 3-year period of time, I really dealt with grieving my father's death, which was a big part of it. I realized I was in a seriously horrible, toxic work environment that, I ate to cope or I didn't eat to cope. And I had to make some real changes long term in my life to be healthy and to get out of the emotional eating disorder.
And very successful at that. You post a lot about your weight loss journey or in your mindful eating journey. And with that, the weight starts coming off. So when is it that you decided I'm going to share my struggles and this whole mindful eating journey with the world?
I had so much shame around it forever. I used to think like how I'm never going to find a good husband because if a guy finds out that I'm actually really fat, and I've been really fat, like he's never going to love me because I'm going to end up being fat again. So I guess like, I always think in life when you share your most vulnerable moments, they turn out to be your superpowers. So I don't know if it was a specific moment, but somewhere along the way, oh, actually ties into our friends at Fox 5 DC. I started talking about it, and I'd actually never worn a bikini. I was 31 years old, I think. I'd never worn a bikini in public ever. And I think our mutual friend Jeff Gygax, I was pitching him an idea of like, what if I wore a bikini for the very first time in DuPont Circle on TV and talked about body image? And Jeff, I love our friend. Jeff was like, sure, hon, like, let's do it. And so we did it. And that was, people also still know me for that. They knew me for that for a very long time. They couldn't believe that I did that because so many people could relate.
It's a daily practice still. You're always conscious of what you're putting in your body, how you're feeling. Because I've been in recovery for a long time. You never are recovered. Days I skip a workout or feel down or eat too much or sit on the couch and just eat a whole bag of something and feel a little sluggish, but I'm not beating myself up. I'm not purging or, overdoing it afterward. You sort of just accept it and move on. It's normal. It's not all consuming.
The freedom, the joy that like for years I would cry thinking about it is like now I wake up and I don't think about food and exercise all day long. I mean, I know that voice it used to be that record all day. Don't eat that. Don't eat. You ate too much. Now you got to work out an hour. Actually, you should work out an hour and a half. That was torture. And now to your point, like every once in a while when things are stressful, and now I'm pregnant, I'm actually 8 weeks pregnant. So that also triggers it, right? Because
Exciting. Yes, I've been watching your reels.
thank you. Your body is being taken over by this little person and needs a lot of good food, nutrient rich food. So like also being conscious of that. And so yes, I'm very much with you. It's still a practice. I still sometimes have to say to myself like I just do a lot of meditation, and in practice I thank my body for being so healthy, for getting me to this point, for sustaining me, for living. So I really practice like the gratitude and slowing down around food.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've gotten a ton of feedback from younger viewers or, people our age or even older. We're thankful you're sharing your story and maybe that's helping them realize what they're struggling with and taking that first step. Is there a message that you like to pass along when people approach you? Because oftentimes, unfortunately, it really does take many, many years to take that first leap into getting help.
Yeah, my favorite thing is I always tell people if you spend a lot of your day thinking about your weight, not liking your body, hating the way you look, there's a couple of books that I love that changed my life. Women, Food, and God is one of them. Should be like, it should be People, Food, and God because it's so good for men as well. One of the best books I think that explains the food noise. And the thing with food that's challenging is like with drugs or alcohol, you don't need to drink or do drugs to live. But we all have to eat. You have to eat. You have to find a healthy relationship with food because you need it in order to keep going. Such an incredible book. Another book by Bob Schwartz called Diets Don't Work. You can find it on Amazon. It's out of print, but you can still find copies. That changed my life. Explained a lot about what's in food, how food keeps us addicted, how lots of times it's not even you. It's the stuff that you're putting in your body that craves more and more. And then Intuitive Eating is one of my favorite ones. Those books are so great to begin to just cultivate a practice of loving yourself, appreciating your body, realizing when food goes into your body, what it's doing, and how you can begin to crave healthier things instead of course, like all the fast food things, all the things that we think we want to crave and that are treats.
Yeah, quick comfort foods that are really fast and then you automatically regret are oftentimes easier to reach for because they're cheaper. They're what's available in the workplace. You just need to grab something fast and stuff it in your face. But that takes me back to the Kane show. You're on for several years. It was a phenomenon. It was a juggernaut of a show. You were everywhere. There was a lot going on behind the scenes that you didn't talk about a while afterwards, but I want to start with the highs of that show because it's the downtimes. You seem to have a lot of fun. What was it like every day in that environment?
So many good things too. The chemistry, right? Like I could probably talk to you for an hour since you've worked in television. You've seen over the years anchors that have amazing chemistry. The audience loves them. The audience looks forward to it. They just have this great flow. They're funny. The Kane show for the first 7 years, 6, 7 years was like magic. Four people came together: Sammy, Kane, Eric, myself. And then we had Mel, who was in Florida. So five of us. And it was just like it was like an episode of Friends. You were tuning into these four friends who genuinely hung out, who enjoyed each other, who had all kinds of crap going on in their lives. And the requirement was that you talked about your life. It made me realize and appreciate when you have chemistry with people on air, it can't be matched and it's very hard to replicate. That was an incredible high. A second one was we got to meet so many celebrities, so many stars from the beginning, from Justin Bieber to Rihanna to 50 Cent, and seeing their careers pop off when you met them at the time and they were like, just regular people was so really amazing. Taught me a lot about interviewing and more.
And Lee, that show had a big drop, a big fall from grace toward the end. There were scandals revealed, drug abuse going on behind the scenes, toxicity, coworkers not being treated well. Talk about the exit of that show and the impact it had on you. Also, your reservations about speaking out afterward. How you feel now, especially with Kane no longer with us.
I know, right? Okay. So much there. That's like full circle, right? I'd say the first 3 years started out great. The last three were, oh my God. I mean, it was just like what you said, toxic, pitting people against one another. I think again, I was young too. Like, I think in hindsight, obviously, right now I'm in my 40s. There's so many things that happened that right then and there, I would have been like, wait a minute. Okay, we need to figure this out. We either need a mediator, we need to go to our boss. But at the time, we didn't know it. We didn't know that Kane really had a mental illness, that he was really untreated OCD and bipolar and depressed and was medicating with alcohol and then eventually pills. Nobody, this was like 2010. Nobody really still like put two and two together. A toxic thing you can imagine. I mean, just, if we didn't do enough show prep, Kane would CC us on an email to our bosses, basically saying that we weren't working hard enough. We didn't deserve the bonuses we were getting. Meanwhile, the show was like number one by miles and miles, And no matter what you did for Kane, was never enough, which I thought was like on me. I thought, okay, well, if I just work harder, he won't yell at us. He won't do this. And I didn't think of it as like being something that was going chemically wrong with him, because underneath it all, I think he was such a good person and wanted to be a good person, but there were so many levels there of insecurity. I mean, look, a lot of the content was fake. We grew this amazing show, and then segments like War of the Roses and Kane Scams were all like staged actors. And I think when you do that and you present it to the audience like it's real, and then you begin to get big press, like the Washington Post wanted to do a story, and I mean, you can't do those stories because what are you going to do? Lie to a major media? Like, well, oh yeah, these cheating stories are real. It's like, I think we got ourselves into a corner and, his name was on the show. I think that pressure was unbelievable for him. I mean, throw keys at us, threw trash cans at us. I mean, took a baseball one time and threatened Sammy. I mean, it was so bad, but so much of the behavior was excused because we were number one. And I was so mixed up in what I should say, what I shouldn't say, my own accountability in it, which was, I mean, I didn't say a lot. And in hindsight, I should have recorded it. I should have gone to our bosses. I should have said to Kane as a friend, like, dude, let's like go have coffee. Like, what is going on with you? What's wrong? And so when I went to the mindful eating therapist, she was a big catalyst in saying to me, this is like an abusive relationship. This is like a husband that punches you in the face and then the next day tells you that he loves you, like you've got to leave, like the way this isn't going to get better. You've got to leave. So I finally, it took me a long time because, the money was unbelievable. We were making, some years we were making over $250,000 each. And we were like 28, 20. I mean, the money was like insane. So it was hard to leave that. I remember, my entertainment attorney and people being like, oh, stick it out for the money. A lot of people are in toxic, and so it took me a good year to leave. And that was very hard. The saying there was, you're either with us or you're against us. And the moment I walked out that door, people I had been friends with for 6 and 7 years, no one ever called me again. They called me later on. My mom had gotten breast cancer. They saw that through social media. They'd reached out. That was probably about a year later. But for me, it was like I had so much anger still towards the whole situation. It was really hard. And to be honest with you, you asked me like why you talked about it. I mean, the reason I'm able to talk about it is sadly because Cain passed away. Cain was, unfortunately, he never got better while he was here on earth and would still do things years after I left. If I'd posted something about the show, I'd get a cease and desist. Like my lawyer, he was always monitoring what I was doing. So for a lot of years, I didn't speak out. I didn't want to tell people about it because I didn't want the wrath of him back in my life. I wanted away from him. I kept hearing through the grapevine that he was more and more addicted to alcohol, to pills. I kept hearing there was a lot of problems behind the scenes at the show. And then Danny, the woman that replaced me, ended up exiting, called me, same story of what Mel had gone through and Sammy had gone through and myself had gone through. And, then I heard too that he was fired, got divorced from his wife. There was a domestic violence incident he was arrested for that, I mean, you knew things were like you couldn't hide it anymore.
There was no final talk between you two, no reconciliation.
No, we never reconciled. I'm gonna say maybe. Oh, because I did come back and was a part of a show, Sarah, and Mel, for about a year and a half. When we all got blown out, and I do regret this. He called me late at night, and I never picked up the phone. And I always regret that because I always wonder, you just wonder, like, could that conversation have helped him? Had done something? And I regret not picking up the phone.
It could have been a messy conversation. It could have been him calling drunk or high and wanting to fight. Who knows?
Or could he have been calling to remind me? And he did text me after the show and he said something about I think he did, it was something along the lines of, I could really make this painful for you on air, but I'm not going to because we've been friends for so long. Something like this veiled threat.
See you later. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, now I look back on it as I learned so much. The saddest part is Cain has two beautiful daughters who are now in high school who are, they don't have a dad. That's the saddest part. And he was so talented. And what a sad way to end your life. What a sad way, to pass away from addiction like that. For somebody who was so young, 44 years old, had so much talent. And now with podcasting, would have had a multi-million-dollar show. It was very sad. And I think about him, all the tales, and I think of all the things he taught me and the way that I want to run my business based on that experience, what I want to do right and what I don't want to repeat.
Very well said. And that brings us to podcasting. You mentioned the paychecks you were receiving in radio. They were astronomical, which I'm sure was hard to walk away from. You lived through the heyday of radio, and you've lived through the decline as well. I don't remember the last time I even put on the radio. It's all podcast now. So describe what it was like for you to see that scene dwindling and for you to follow your gut and step away, even though there was not a paycheck attached. And then, no, I got to get out of here and start to do my own thing. That radio is not where it's going to be.
I think you've probably seen it in local news, right? A lot of the famous anchors that we loved who used to make millions of dollars a year, DC anchors and, 700,000, all this stuff. You'd begin to hear rumblings over time, like they were taking major pay cuts to stay. That was all happening in radio as well. And I would say my one superpower in business is I have a little bit of a gut instinct only when it comes to media, our business, but a little bit of like a crystal ball. And when I did my last radio stint, Sarah, and Mel, on Mix 107.3, which also doesn't exist anymore. But we would go out and ask women our age who should be listening to the radio, what are you listening to? And everybody was listening to the serial true crime Adnan Syed series. And I thought, this is the kiss of death. This, in that moment, I just had a blink and I said, okay, if these women can listen to this series on demand when they want, at night, in a car, at home on YouTube, it's game over. Because why wouldn't they do that on instant pop culture, instant news? It was, with you remember with radio, you couldn't even talk 5 minutes without then doing a 7-minute commercial break. Now you listen to podcasts, you subscribe to your favorite show if you want to go ad free, or you listen to the ads, or you skip through them. You know what I mean? But you can listen to content on demand anytime you want. I knew in my heart in 2015, I go, this is it. So I took my severance package and I started my podcast. And I will tell you, I did go from making great money to um it was the first 4 years were incredibly scary. I made no money, I lost money, and I did have some real moments of panic.
Especially starting up, you're not going to make any money in podcasting unless you're a huge celebrity that's going to come with an army of followers and sponsors. So you've been hustling for years and getting those ads, and you are extremely devoted. What's your advice to anyone, whether they're in a toxic workplace or not, that really just feels like the industry they're in is dying and they want to start a new chapter? It did take you a while to get out.
It totally did. And I'll be honest with you, I never, ever thought that I would be an entrepreneur and own my own business. Ever, 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 ever. I didn't. I was like, I love working for somebody. I love a paycheck. I don't want the worry. But now of course I love the freedom, right? I'm home for my 4-year-old son every afternoon. I record what I want. I book guests when I want. I can work nights. I can work more. The freedom is unbelievable. I would say for someone, make a plan. Write down what piques your interest. What in your gut speaks to you that you've always wanted to try, and begin to make a plan. That's what I did with mapping out, like, if I stayed in radio, how could I launch something else? Or if I took the money, what could I do? And I saved, I saved up, I planned, I obviously had an amazing now husband who really helped me. But don't just willy-nilly it. Like, make a plan, because most people usually in their gut have an idea of what they want to do. Look, our business, podcasting, was unique back in 2015 because there weren't even major companies at that time selling ads. Now, if you have the wits, the wherewithal, the hustle, you could start a podcast, and there's like 45 companies that sell ads for shows at all different sizes. So you're coming into a business now where you can make money, and there's lots of ways to do it. So make an actual strategic plan, make a financial plan, and take the leap 100%. Bet on yourself.
Exactly. And anyone can make a podcast, and you're going to find some sort of following, even if it's not this juggernaut of a show. And you can make one even if you've quote unquote been canceled, which I want to talk to you about because you've experienced cancel culture and it eventually fades away.
I've been canceled like multiple times, I think, now.
Usually only lasts a couple weeks and the heat dies down, but it happened to you at Fox 5. Did it happen to you in radio as well?
No, I think I left before we could get canceled, but I feel like I was canceled again after Fox. And I was trying to think for what. Well, I was kind of canceled like a year ago when I went to Something About Our sandwich shop out here and like trashed them on opening day. I got a lot of backlash, ended up in the Daily Mail for that. I mean, yeah, that was like for 3 days. A lot of people unfollowed, hated it, and now my show's like stronger than ever. So yeah.
So how do you handle the negativity on social media, that backlash?
Well, when I was canceled at Fox, that was really tough. That was for the Michael Brown story, which was a young kid in Texas. There were 3 of us that were anchoring that segment. Basically, he was a young Black kid from Texas, raised by a single mom, had applied to like 20 Ivy League schools. I mean, truly, we did this. It was funny because remember, it was a Tuesday Talker segment, and it was like, it was the last day we were doing it. They canceled the segment. We needed a story. We had nothing. And someone had pitched that. And we basically were like, yeah, is this kid taking away a college spot from other kids by applying to 20 Ivy League schools? Oh my God, the internet went crazy. People were like, you're attacking this young Black man. People, and Allison Seymour was on the panel, who is Black, but people thought she was white. So then it was like 3 white Fox anchors, trash Black man. It was It was 2 weeks. Oh my God, I got death threats. I lost sponsors to the podcast. DC Lottery canceled their campaign and somebody else, I can't remember who else canceled their campaign. Anyhow, it was rough. That was my first time ever experiencing that kind of like viral moment. That was brutal. Oh, we were on the Breakfast Club like Donkey of the Day, but they actually got the wrong Sarah. They said Sarah Simmons, who was an Sarah Simmons got canceled by like association. It was wild. It was really hard. But you know what I learned a couple of things from that. I think you have to listen to your gut. Obviously I myself and management disagreed because our management team at the time did not want us to apologize, didn't want us to cave to the mob. They were like, look, you have the right to this kid's story went national. You have the right to debate it, right? Fair enough. They had a point. But I was like, I'm not that attached to this. Like, I don't care. The kid himself, I think, had called the station and, he was upset and his mother was upset. I'm like, look, honestly, I truly didn't realize this was going to strike a race chord. Like, I am happy to just say, I am so sorry. Not my intent. Totally understand how this was taken out of context. And I should have done that, but I didn't because the company had asked us not to. And I think I learned in that moment, I should have gone with my gut. I ended up apologizing on social media like a week later. Yeah, I think you have to listen to your gut in that moment and own some things and just move on, which I wish I had done sooner because I think it probably wouldn't have been as bad. But then, look, I learned a ton from that, which is to your point. I was canceled for 2 weeks. I lost 2 sponsors and now I have like, 15 more.
No. Yeah, and you've built your own empire over this last decade. The podcast has had many iterations. It was originally called Hey Frage, like the number one show in DC before you moved to LA. And you've had many co-hosts along the way, including Paul Wharton and Andrea Lopez. And talk about the evolution of the show and maybe the difficulties of having co-hosts that come and go.
It's twofold for me. One was, I was afraid. I think in my heart wanted to solo host, but I didn't know how because I'd always worked on an ensemble, whether it was for Fox 5 DC or radio. I was always a part of Sarah Ty and Mel or The Kane Show. So it was partly my lack of confidence. And then the other part was, the big thing was I didn't have the money to really pay my co-hosts as full-time employees. You know what I'm saying? So when you're like that, when you're kind of part-time, Sammy was launching his uber successful $1 billion Snacklins company while kind of co-hosting and helping me out. So it was always this feeling of like people are half in, half out. Paul has had a lifestyle brand, a book for years. He travels the world. So expecting Paul to like be there continually and it was really hard. I had these expectations that they didn't have. Andrea, unbelievable talent, dear friend of mine to this day. I knew she was going to like pop off and Andrea, by the time I'd gotten to Andrea, she was my third co-host. I knew we always went into our kind of friendship and co-host as like, you're going to be here as long as you're here until it makes sense. And then you're going to go do your own thing. Cause she's such a talented comedian. So by that time after Andrea, I just said, I can't bring somebody on again. I'm going to do this solo. I did greatest decision I ever made and greatest financial decision too. It's hard to pay somebody what they're worth, and run your small business.
And with that, you picked up and moved to LA, which is something you had been pulling over for many years. Talk about the moment you decided, that's it, I'm packing up my bags. We're going to say goodbye to DC and start over on the West Coast. And also deciding that you're going to do the podcast daily.
I moved to LA because really during the pandemic, in our business, all the kind of talent reality people, a lot of that dried up in DC. And I just didn't see it ever coming back for many, many years the way that it did, let's say like a decade ago, Same with like radio, right? There wasn't really major talent coming to radio stations anymore. They didn't need to. They were going to be doing podcasts, other things, promoting. So TikTok. So I knew New York or LA were the places I need to go. And I love Los Angeles. The people here are wild. The weather's fabulous. I just was like, okay, LA is where it's at. And so, and then daily, I really felt like there was a hole in the market in the sense of podcasts had really started out once a week. That was like what everybody did once a week. And then I thought, well, why? I mean, I do a 45-minute daily pop culture show with anybody trending in the news as guests, and really a lot of reality TV and sort of what is hot and people are talking about right now. And I'm like, why not give people a daily fix of that? If they're going to listen once a week, wouldn't they be inclined to listen more often and pop in? So that's how it started, 7 days a week.
And you've really gotten immersed in TLC programming. How did that come about? Because a lot of podcasts cover the Bravo world and Housewives, and you found your own niche and even doing TV spots with TV at TLC.
What brought me into TLC? Random. 6, 7 years ago, a show called Welcome to Plathville, which is wild, about a family in Georgia that's uber religious that sheltered their kids. The kids grew up without TV. They never drank soda. They had no clue what an iPhone was. This was in like 2019. That show drew me in. And I would just message the talent going like, I want to have you on my show. Like, this show is wild. Like, let me, and they were like, okay, connect. Like, here's our TLC rep. Talk to them. Started a relationship with TLC 6 years ago, and they just enjoyed putting talent on my show. They said, our talent likes going on your show. You come full circle. You make it fun for them. So we're going to send you more talent. And people know me for my Sister Wives, my Welcome to Plathville, my 1,000-Pound Sisters, my 90-Day Fiance, a lot of that.
You got a lot of attention with your Drake Bell interview. How did you land that? Because it was his first after that documentary came out, right?
I was the first one to interview him. I got extremely lucky. 2 reasons. One, I had a mutual friend who was doing some PR work for me, and he had been very good friends with Drake Bell. And I'm going to say, it's so funny too how like life works. I feel like 6 months before that documentary came out, he called me and he's like, Drake Bell, good friend of mine, he's got this documentary coming out. It's going to be huge. I'm like, okay. He's like, he's going to do your show. I'm like, all right, well, anytime, you let me know. Then never heard a word, right? Quiet on Set comes out, and I get a phone call from my friend Justin Crawford, who's amazing. And he said, Drake's available like Wednesday, wants to do your show and talk about the doc. I said, okay, I'm in. Originally, Drake was going to talk for 20 minutes. He talked for like an hour and 15. And the thing that worked out really well for me was Drake was very reluctant to do mainstream media. He'd had such a bad experience with the New York Times. They'd written an article basically painting him as a sex offender a couple of years ago. He had an incident where he was in contact with a 15-year-old, but they never met. He didn't know she was 15. He didn't do the research. He was kind of in his addiction. Anyway, he owned that. He certainly talked about it because obviously no grown man should be contacting a 15-year-old. But he really had a bad taste in it. He hated the way that they portrayed him and never really gave him a chance to tell his side. So he really was like, it was very therapeutic for him. I'm like, I don't edit. Say what you want to say. Like, we'll talk about the whole thing. He did. And that was probably my most viral in the best way moment. That interview went, everywhere. Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Daily Mail, Fox News, everybody carried that. It was the first one after Quiet on Set.
Incredible. My gosh, you're doing fantastic. And I do want to get a little more personal with you because you picked up and moved to LA. You also had to pick up Schman, your husband, Dan. I was listening to your podcast when you guys were in the off and on stage and you were planning your wedding. And then at the same time, you were like, oh, we're probably going to break up. And it's very funny to witness all of that and hear the story of off and on. But it's he adjusted to all the different eras of your life.
Great question. Which, by the way, I don't think you were at Fox 5 when I would come in and basically tell all those anchors like Wisdom Mar. I would like unload about how I'm never going to be with this man. And then I married him. Like they were like, you are so crazy. Anyway, Schman, I always say Schman, I don't know, God sent, because how he stuck around the first 5 years, I have no idea. I had a lot of hangups where I believed getting married would ruin my career. I thought having a kid would ruin my career, which is the opposite, by the way. Having a child brings you incredible focus, incredible joy. You don't have time to, fuck around with ideas or meet random people for coffee that's never going to go anywhere. A child will bring you incredible focus, joy, creativity like you wouldn't believe. Wish I'd believed that, years ago. And so will marriage when you do it right. I will say this. I think dating Schman for 5 years and breaking up and getting back together and me being on the fence, it really forced us to have a lot of major conversations about career, kids, morals, money, because it was just so like on again, off again. And actually, it was so on again, off again. It brought us to our couples therapist, who we still see to this day. Her name is Lee Conant. Can't recommend her enough. She's an emotional cognitive couples therapist, which basically just means like she helps you like slow down and connect and communicate deeply with your partner. She is the one that also everything clicked for me. Like, this is the man for me. This is the person for me. He gets me. He will ride with this journey. And I always say my wedding day was one of the best decisions of my life, hands down.
Are opposite in many ways, but you also seem similar in many ways. I love that he's going to therapy because he comes across very soft spoken, but he's obviously willing to communicate and willing to express and put in the work. That's a beautiful thing. And another thing that you've been so candid about is your fertility journey, and you've had a harrowing journey with having children. You do have a 3.5-year-old son now, 4.
He's, well, just close, 4. He turned 4 in April, but yep.
Sadly, you've also had several miscarriages, which you've shared on social media. You've documented your IVF journey, now pregnant with your second child. It's been many years and many attempts. Can you just share a little bit about the struggle that you've had and where you're at now? And had like a very rare type of miscarriage,
Crazy molar, a partial molar pregnancy, which is like, it's so rare. So rare. I mean, I think it happens to 1 in 20,000. I mean, it's so rare. It's when 2 sperm fertilize 1 egg. The baby gets a duplicate set of chromosomes, can't live, but oftentimes undetected until like 13 weeks, 14 weeks. Then okay, when you have that, all these cysts, because everything is sort of going wrong, all these cysts grow in the placenta and your uterus. That was my first miscarriage back when I was like 37. So random.
Did you have to have chemo for that?
Yes. I had no idea that a molar pregnancy, because like all these moles grow inside you, is a form of pregnancy cancer. After they did the DNC, which is what they do when you have a miscarriage, they have to remove the fetus, all that. Sometimes in rare cases, the mole can still be there and grow back, which is what happened to me. I had a hemorrhage, which is, I mean, the OBGYN team I worked with were like, we don't even know what to tell you. In our 20 years of practice, you're the only one that this has ever happened to. I'm like, I always say, and may that luck work on the other end as well. Like, may I come to LA and be that one person that like all good things happen and lands a TV show. So I always feel like it works both ways. But anyway, that was my first one. And then I had to have methotrexate shots, which are a form of chemo, like you said. And then since then, I had my healthy son, which was great, amazing pregnancy. And then I had 3 more. Over the age of 40, starting at 40, 41, 43. Yeah. And so now I've moved on to an egg donor. I'm 8 weeks pregnant with my egg donor egg. I'm so grateful. I can't even tell you how happy I am to not be using my dusty ass 43-year-old eggs. I'm so grateful. Things are going very well. And I talk about my journey because I think women need to hear that the doctors aren't lying when they tell you it's very hard to have a healthy pregnancy over the age of 35 for a lot of us. Look, I tell my story and I get inundated with women who are like, I'm 44 and naturally pregnant. I'm like, God bless you. You are so lucky. Like, but I am that person. I should have had kids at like 28. I should have froze my eggs. So I just tell people, and I have a lot of girlfriends too that are in their 40s, want to have a kid. And I say, when you're over 40, you have to be open to what God, the universe, puts in front of you, whether it's foster to adopt, whether it's straight adoption, whether it's egg donor, whether it's trying IVF. You have to be open, because I will say the women who I know that have had fertility journeys that are open all end up with a baby some way. It might not have been the way they thought, but they end up having a healthy baby somehow. And so again, if I can just put my life out there, and it has not been easy. I mean, even this pregnancy, I'll go along for a week and feel so great. And then just that like doom, like, when is the other shoe going to drop? I'll have a day where I'm so low about things, a pain in my side, and you're like, oh, is this? So it's not easy at all.
You have to be on every day recording the podcast and sounding upbeat.
Yeah. And you have to be on. And so I just want to share that because it is tough, and more women are going through it, because I think we want to start families later, because I love having my son at 39. It was great. over the party scene. I love hanging out with him. We hang out 24/7. So it's great to have children when you're older, but it's just women have to be prepared. That definitely is not easy all the time.
You're helping a lot of people, Sarah. And another thing that you're helping people with and you've been candid about, which I also want to talk about because I've dealt with it in my own family, is addiction. Your brother is in recovery and owns a camping business, like a tent business in Maine.
Yeah, glamping business called Comfy Dome. If you're ever heading to Maine, you can sleep under the stars. I actually think he'll be 14 years sober this September, October. He's helped a lot of people in AA, a lot of people in recovery. I'm so proud of him. We're so close. When I tell you sobriety, I mean, changed our family, changed his life. He went from just being such a lost person to having a successful business and being somebody that gives back to the community. And my brother always says, he's like, I never knew my life could be this good sober. And I'm like, oh, I hope everyone who is struggling hears that. Cause I think a lot of times you think the party's over when you have to get sober. And he's just said like, oh my God, I never thought my life could be this good.
Beautiful thing. The glamping thing looks so cozy, especially in the fall and all the photos you post.
You need to go up. You'd love it.
Should definitely check that out. Okay, and the final moments, the tangle. What are you tangled in right now that you're loving, that you're immersing yourself in, and what are you a little frustrated with that you want to get untangled from?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm beautifully entangled in having this baby, and I'm trying to relax and enjoy my pregnancy and do all kinds of interesting meditations and fun things to be in the moment and think positive and be positive. So that I'm taking in and loving. Okay, one of the things I'm entangled is I mentioned my gunkles, who I adore, who were like parents to me. But one of my favorite gunkle of all time passed away in January, and I am the executor of his will, and it's a nightmare. So I would say this, I am learning this as an adult. Never become someone's executor of their will unless you know like where the will is, what their wishes are, do they have any money, do they have a life insurance policy. It has been so much work. When I tell you, and the crazy twists and turns, I adored them so much, but you think being like an executor to someone's will is like an honor. It's actually can be a fucking nightmare. That's really, I'd like to untangle myself from that because I get constant calls, constant.
Ugh, yeah, that's so tough, especially so many months ago and you're still dealing with it. Take note, take note.
Let it be a lesson. Talk to your mama. Find out what your mama's wishes are for you, your brothers. And she needs to have, I would say this to everybody for your parents, because they were like parents to us. Everything needs to be written out. Everything. They can't say, oh, you know what? I really want Johnny to have this picture. Put it in your will. Unless it's there in writing, it is so hard to do. People have so many feelings about it. All these things. Like you need to know everything about what your mom's wishes, where her will is, what happens when she passed, everything. Like nobody wants to talk about death, but it's like it's so much work for your children. Take effing no. I am happy to give you the guide.
Before we go, you're busy with your own podcast, of course, but now you're helping others develop and launch their own shows. Can you talk about the new project you're offering?
So many people I know, right? Like we know and what you're doing have left media, left businesses, or have thriving businesses and then want the power of podcasting. So I launched my own podcasting courses, Go Big Podcasting, and 3 levels, Podcasting 101, Podcasting for Pros, which kind of tells you how to get started and also how to start making money, and then 6-Figure Master Plan, which is really how you can scale up and make it a full-time job if that's what you want to do. So yeah, it's been going very well. I do one-on-one consulting. You can email the Sarah Fraser Show at gmail.com, but we're in the heyday. We're in the heyday of podcasting. It's not too late to get in. As one of my podcast friends says, we're only in the 3rd inning, and it's only going to get bigger. So if you've always had that desire, I would love to work with you, and I'd love to give you the roadmap because it's the roadmap I wish I'd had 9 years ago when I started and all the mistakes I made.
Every pro now, you're the pro. Sarah, this has been such a pleasure.
Kyle, I love you. I love you. I'm so glad we could sit down. I can't wait to have you on my show because your story and journey is unbelievable too. You've come out of the gate. Your podcast is so good. Judy Gold on. I mean, you are just like, I'm like, excuse me. You are such a star. You are such a star already. I'm obsessed.
Wasn't that an awesome conversation? We love Sarah. Make sure to check out her podcast. It's a daily one, The Sarah Fraser Show, wherever you get your podcast. She is always up to date on all things pop culture. She is killing it on social media, so follow her on TikTok and Instagram. She's a delight. And keep it here because it's a double dose of episodes this week, and we will be back on Thursday with an amazing man. His name is Rob Goddard, and he is a new author. He just wrote his first book called Behind the Smile. It's a heavy one, but it's an inspirational one. It delves into all the masks that we tend to wear and how we can remove those masks when we realize they're becoming a hindrance. It's an interesting read. I recommend everyone check it out. We dive into it all in just 3 days, so come back on Thursday. Till then, take care of yourselves. I will talk to you soon.